guys, welcome back to the Pathways to Happiness podcast. My name is Nena Lavonne. I'm a life coach that specializes in personal development and life transformation. And today we are going to be talking all about comparison. Why it is we are so tempted to constantly compare ourselves to other people, and more importantly, how to stop this behavior so we can go on to lead much happier and healthier lives. So before we jump into today's topic, as always, I just want to take a moment to truly thank you for being such an incredible audience and for your support both here and on the Nena Lavonne YouTube channel. It means more to me than you could possibly know. Also, just a quick reminder that we are going to be recording a questions and answers podcast next week. So do go ahead and get those questions to me. I can be reached at nena.lavonne@gmail.com, and that is spelled nena.lavonne at Gmail. And you can also reach me on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is at Nena Lavonne. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic, which I am so excited about because I think it's something that absolutely all of us can relate to, especially in this era of digital media where we are forced to see the lives of other people 24 hours a day. And we know that it is human nature to compare ourselves to other things to begin with. It is, for good or bad, the way we often try to determine our own value. We compare or contrast ourselves from one thing to another and see kind of where we stand. But the problem in the age of social media is that we're really not able to get an accurate assessment to begin with, because we are most often comparing our internal world to the external doctored up world of other people. It has been famously said, and I could not agree more, that comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that we all do realize that for the most part, when we are comparing ourselves to other people, we always feel that we come up short. It is very infrequent that we are comparing ourselves to other people and we feel that we are doing way better than them. Now, that of course can happen, but most of the time when we are comparing ourselves, we usually end up feeling badly about ourselves because comparisons are always unfair. We will compare the worst things that we perceive about ourselves to what we think is the best qualities in other people most of the time. And right off the bat, we have to realize before we go any further that everything is just perception. Our reality is completely based on our own perception. So it doesn't matter what we have as our true reality. If we think it's something else, then that is what reality is for us. So if we decide that for some reason we are less successful or less attractive than the next person, then that is our reality. We are going to live our lives in a way that is congruent with that actually being the case, which so many times it is not. Again, it all comes down to perception. There are just so many fundamental problematic issues that come along with comparison to begin with. So one is that we have to remember that we are too unique to really compare to anybody else. We all have different gifts and different successes or contributions, and it makes absolutely no sense to try to compare that to someone else's gifts or contributions, because it is apples and oranges. It is not that we are exactly the same and then we can just really compare on that one singular factor. It just does not make any sense. It's crazy because if we really just learn to stay in our own lane and we think about our own life, we can see so many things that are positive in our life and we can actually feel pretty good about things. But the second we decide to open Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is for us, and we see someone that we think is even just doing a little bit better than us in some area, especially if it's something that we are insecure about is going to completely crush our world. And we forget that we have these accomplishments to begin with because it no longer matters to us, because we feel that that person has done more, and that somehow means that what we have done is completely worthless. And this is a cycle that just goes on and on and on. And it's also a great way to feel a lot of resentment towards other people that really don't deserve it. We are comparing ourselves, so we are starting to feel very negatively about other people who are just trying their best to live their own life. Now, yes, it is true that they are probably, making themselves look their absolute best. Maybe they are airbrushing their pictures or only talking about the positive aspects of their lives. And yes, that can make it seemingly look like their lives are way better than they actually are. But they do not deserve our resentment. The resentment only comes when we are, again, comparing ourselves and feeling that we don't measure up. The sad part about comparison is that we so often feel that we are not enough. It always comes back to that one phrase: we are not enough. We do not feel that we measure up to other people. And like I've said 1,000 times, does not matter how untrue that is. If it is our perception, again, that becomes our reality. It can seriously cripple our self-esteem, and for really no reason. We have to be aware of all the negative effects of comparison and how much it is actually impacting your life, because a lot of times, without realizing it, we can sometimes even make major decisions because of comparison. I have had clients that have changed their careers because they have compared themselves to other people and, again, felt that they just didn't measure up, so they went in another direction completely with their lives, which is just crazy. We need to think about what we really want for our lives and not worry about comparing ourselves to other people, because it really does not matter. But how do we get there? We know it's human nature. How do we stop comparing ourselves to others? I think the first step in all of this really comes to putting our focus back on ourselves. When we are comparing ourselves to others, we are focusing on the wrong person. We are focusing on others that really have nothing to do with our lives. Now, maybe we know them and maybe they are somewhat involved in our lives, but that's their life to lead and that is their business. What is our business is our own life, and that needs to be where our focus and energy are centered. So that's the first thing that we need to realize. And then we need to really get real about how much comparison is affecting us and when and where we tend to do this. So an exercise that I like to do with my clients is to actually sit down and write down the times in our day when we notice that we are comparing ourselves to other people. So we first have to notice that we are doing it. And just by listening to this podcast, it shows that you have some awareness that comparison is problematic for you, but we do need to know, where it is stemming from. So is it when we're on social media? Is it when we're at the gym? Is it when we visit our family members? Where are we tending to feel the need to compare ourselves? Then we need to figure out what things and what areas are we personally feeling that we are coming up short in. We need to figure out our sensitive issues, because we always tend to compare ourselves in areas that we are insecure about. And there are reasons why we're insecure in these areas. And once we can figure that out and really get to the root of that, we can heal those areas of our life so we don't feel the need to compare ourselves in that area anymore. So for example, if we have this perception for some reason that we are unattractive, we are going to constantly be comparing ourselves to other people that we feel are more attractive. That is going to be something that is going to be an issue again and again and again, and cause an intense and immense amount of suffering for us. So it's really about getting to the bottom of what the issues actually are and when we tend to experience them the most. So we're going to develop this new awareness that it's happening and when we tend to do these social comparisons. And then we are going to learn in real time to stop ourselves. When we realize we are making these comparisons, we are going to pause. We will not allow ourselves to feel badly that we are doing it, but we will stop and then we will observe our thoughts and then change our focus. Because just like everything else in our life, it's simply a habit. Yes, it's human nature, but it's also a habit. We are in the habit of constantly comparing ourselves to other people, but we can learn to stop that behavior. The other thing that we really need to do is to really start to see our own successes. It is this negativity bias that we have that allows us to see all the good things about other people and notice, all the accomplishments and strengths that other people have, but really ignore every single good quality that we have. We never give ourselves the credit that we actually deserve to have. We are always just looking for things to feel badly about ourselves about and really giving other people really more credit than they actually deserve in a lot of cases. So instead, the only person that we are going to compare ourselves to is our own self. We can compare ourselves to how we did the day before or how we did the month before, but other than that, we are not going to compare ourselves to anybody else. We are going to acknowledge our strengths, and a lot of times that comes down to writing that down, really sitting down and brainstorming and thinking about all these wonderful aspects of yourself that you just kind of brush by without thinking about it too much. But there are many things that you are fantastic at that other people would certainly acknowledge, but you just aren't giving yourself credit for. So that's something that we definitely need to work on. And we need to remind ourselves that nobody is perfect. A lot of the torture that we put ourselves through is because we have this standard of perfection that we are trying to reach, which of course doesn't even exist. But if we have this standard of perfection, and let's say we have a new business, for example, we oftentimes will compare our, beginnings of this journey to someone's end result, to a company that has been established for 40 years or is in already the top tier of that category. We have to remember that there is a natural progression to life. We have to start at A and then go through the alphabet before we can get to Z. So if we are trying to really rush through life, trying to get to that end result that we desire, that's not realistic either. So thinking about the idea of perfection or unrealistic expectations, it's just an area that we really need to break that habit in. We simply can't continue to compare situations that are so polar opposite. Of course, we are going to feel badly about ourselves, and unfortunately, it will oftentimes really keep us from reaching our goals because we give up. Once we see that there is too big of a gap between where we want to go and where we are now, we just simply give up a lot of times. But in this calculation, we are failing to realize that every single person that reached these goals had to go through the process. So that is something that we will have to go through ourselves, which is why it's so important to keep our focus on our own lives, because other people, especially when they are talking to us or especially when they are posting about their lives in social media, they are not sharing the journey. They are only sharing the end result. So in our minds, we are thinking that we aren't measuring up, but that is not the case. We have no idea how many failures and how many setbacks every other person went through. We have no way of knowing that. Everybody has their own suffering. Everyone has their own obstacles in their life. Nobody lives a painless life, but that is not something that other people are going to share with us. We also have to make some pretty serious decisions about what areas of our life are really deserving this much time and focus. Now, I am in no way downplaying the amount of suffering we may have experienced while thinking and focusing on some of these issues, but we have to really get real about how important these things really are. For example, so many of us spend so much time worrying about how we look, and I did a recent podcast on that and I received some great feedback on that. So thank you so much for that. I know many of you said that you actually found it very helpful. So if that is an area that is causing suffering for you, I would definitely go ahead and look up that podcast. But we want to really think about how much time and energy we are going to give to these topics. Is our physical appearance, for example, something that is deserving of all the time we are giving it? Are there things that could be greater or more important in our lives? It's true that the higher pursuits in our life really do offer much more life satisfaction. And when we really concern ourselves so heavily with some of these more superficial issues, it really tends to bring us down. And also, there's no way to win at this game, especially in this day and age, because there is nothing that is real anymore. We are trying to compare ourselves to people that are airbrushed and surgically enhanced or having filters on them or have been edited. It is impossible to remember what real people look like anymore. And so many of us feel very sad about how we look only because we are an actual real person and we are comparing ourselves to a standard that is in no way realistic or real in any way. And that's just one of the kind of surface level things that we oftentimes compare ourselves on when we could be thinking about areas of our life that would actually make us a lot more fulfilled. I think another big piece of the puzzle is really learning to focus on the journey. So life is not a competition. Life is not a destination. It is truly a journey. And we never know if we're going to even go to the destination that we initially set to go on. We could change our mind, and that time is wasted getting there. It's all about the path. It is all about the journey. So we have to remember that our journey has nothing to do with how well other people are doing on their journey. That is a completely separate story that has nothing to do with our story. Even if the settings are the same, even if the characters are the same, it does not matter. That is still their journey, and we need to focus on our journey. And don't get so caught up in feeling like everything has to happen at a certain time or by a certain time, or even feeling that something has to be something specific altogether. We have to be open to life. We have to be open to different life paths and different life possibilities. So we want to really question the standards and the structure that we have set up for ourselves and realize that things can and do change. And that's actually wonderful. Another thing that can be extremely helpful is to really learn to focus on the things that we have and the things that we love. Once we realize that comparing ourselves so much to others really does not work in our favor, we can begin to shift our focus to the things that are positive and that are good in our life. And there's so many things that are so positive and good that we are not even thinking about half the time. So it's about remembering to be grateful for all the positive aspects of our life. And once we can shift that focus to a feeling of gratitude, we are going to realize how well we are actually doing, and that it is the simple act of comparison that is not allowing us to see how good our life really is and how much we are truly surrounded by blessings and miracles. all the time. Something that you can do if this is problematic for you is to keep a gratitude journal. It's just a wonderful way to just remind yourself of all the good things that you do have, and it will help keep you from taking these things for granted. So if you just take a few moments every single day to write down the things from that day or from your life in general that you appreciate so deeply, you will have so much evidence of how great your life actually is. So it's a matter of really shifting that focus and also realizing that in terms of other people, even if they have things that we wish that we had, it does not mean that they are any happier than we are. We don't know if these things are actually a reality in the first place, but even if they are a reality, it does not mean that they are taking time to appreciate the things that they do have in their own lives. So if we can learn to really, truly experience and practice gratitude, we are going to have such a fulfilling life because we realize how good we actually have it. Another thing that we can think about if we are not happy with where we are in our life, a lot of times when we compare ourselves to other people, it's simply because somewhere inside of us we realize that we want to make changes. And if we find that that is the case, the smartest thing to do here is to start setting goals. Start making a plan to change the aspects and the areas of our life that really aren't making us happy. I know for myself, I went through a period of time that I almost was envious of people that had a different career than I did because somewhere inside of me, I knew that I wasn't as happy as I could be. So it really pushed me to make changes in my life and to ultimately involve myself with a career that I really feel is my passion and my life's work. Another thing that we can look at is our social circle. Do we have a supportive network, or are we surrounding ourselves with people that are maybe even toxic in nature, people that are causing us to question ourselves and feel the need to constantly compare ourselves? A lot of times, without realizing it, we surround ourselves with people that really don't uplift us, and in fact, they create a lot of suffering for us, which is exactly what we don't want with the people that we are spending a lot of time with. The same thing with social media. We don't really think of these connections on social media a lot of times as true social connections. However, we spend so much time thinking about them and involving ourselves with them. We want to, if necessary, start to decrease our exposure to some of these things, or at least start being aware of the types of images and the types of people that we are associating ourselves with that are having a negative effect on our self-esteem and really causing us to do a lot of negative comparisons for ourselves. We don't want to constantly be looking at ideal or doctored images. Of course, that is going to sink into our psyche. So if there are things that we can think of right off the bat that we know that we are doing, we need to start cutting these things out, because what are we gaining from doing this? Absolutely nothing. We are losing everything. And it is also really separating us from reality. Now, I'm not saying that you need to cut out social media, especially if there are positive aspects for you. You can just use it in a more constructive way. There are informative and inspirational and educational people and pages that you can follow. But you want to make sure that you're really disconnecting from anything that you know in your heart is very negative for you, and that goes with your face-to-face relationships as well. You just want to make sure that the people that are in your life to any degree are uplifting you and not pulling you down. Another thing that we can do, and this is sometimes a little bit harder, but it is so beneficial, and that is, instead of envying the people that we are seeing that we feel are doing better than us in some areas, we can learn to appreciate them and think about how we can actually use them for motivation. So instead of feeling sad or feeling jealous when someone posts a photo of themselves looking great in a beautiful dress, we can use that as motivation for sticking to our health and our fitness goals. So we're just reframing, we're shifting our focus to something positive because we are the ones that are controlling our journey in life. We are the ones that are in control of how happy and sad we are feeling. And I know a lot of times we think that we are not in control of our lives. And it is true, we can't control every situation, but we can always control our reaction. And that all comes down to self-awareness, being aware of how things typically make us feel and make us behave, and learning to change those emotions and behaviors to something that is actually beneficial for us. But I think in the end, the absolute most important part of this entire process is to really learn to accept ourselves and love ourselves for who we really are. Every time we are comparing ourselves, we are telling ourselves that we are not good enough in some way, that someone else is better at this or better at that, or they have achieved more. And this is a message that we don't want to be giving ourselves. We want to be the ones to uplift ourselves and to be really our own cheerleader. We need to notice the good in our life and really let ourselves know that yes, we are doing a good job. And if there's any areas in our life that we are not happy with, we can always choose to change those aspects of our life. There are always improvements that can be made if we decide that we want to make them. We need to give ourselves a break. There is no way we are ever going to be perfect, and there is no sense in comparing ourselves to any other person. No other person has the life we have. No other person has the skills we have and has the same perception we have. This is our life to lead, and it really, truly makes no sense to compare an apple to an orange. So, love yourself, be your own advocate, stand up for yourself, give yourself daily affirmations, tell yourself how wonderful that you actually are. You need to be the one to notice this if you want the world to notice this as well. And the truth is that's the actual reality. You are an amazing person. You can't be compared to anybody else. Take a moment to think about how much you have truly compared yourself to other people and how much self-criticism that you have given yourself. Where has that gotten you? Absolutely nowhere. It doesn't work. We can't continue to be the root cause of our own suffering. So, you are enough. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. This is your own journey. You must love yourself. You must accept yourself and just start reworking this habit. It is a habit that we compare ourselves to other people, and it is certainly a habit that we can break. We can break any habit. We can create new habits. And it also just comes down to authenticity. We must live an authentic life, and we will never do that if we are just comparing ourselves to other people. Our journey has nothing to do with any other person. There's a quote that has really stuck by me my whole life, and it's by Carl Jung, who is one of the most, in my opinion, amazing psychologists of all time. And he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And we cannot actually do that when we are so focused on the lives of other people. So bring your focus back to yourself where it belongs. You are worthy of your own focus. You are worthy of your own love and your own attention. And truly, it is time to break this toxic habit so you can lead the life that you truly were born to live. So I hope you found today's podcast helpful, and I am curious to hear what areas of your own life that you tend to make comparisons in. We all have those certain areas that we feel that we don't measure up, the areas that we are insecure about. So let me know what they are and what you plan to do about it. Also, don't forget to give me those questions that you may have for the upcoming questions and answers podcasts. I love your questions. They are so insightful and interesting, and I greatly look forward to this future podcast. So definitely get those to me as soon as possible. And I thank you all for spending time with me today. I hope the rest of your day is extraordinary, and I will see you next time.